Greetings, fellow buddies. Welcome to another episode of Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. You all know that. But what you don't know is I got a new buddy on the show. His name is Elliott Hunter. He's an upcoming magician. How you doing today?
Doing well. How are we all doing out there?
Doing great, doing great. Glad to have you on the show, man.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let me start by asking, how'd you get into magic?
So I was about 7 years old when I saw my first magician perform at the library at my hometown. And I grew up in a very small town. It's an island community of 16,000 people. So we didn't have magicians very often. So this guy came to the library and he was only about 14 or 15 years old. And he had just been named like an international champion of magic at the time. So I saw his show, saw him perform his show, and I was very inspired. I went to the library, started reading as many books as I could, and had a couple other magicians come through the town that same year. And I kept growing my show until I did my first show at the senior center when I was in like fifth grade, the summer of my fifth grade year. I did a show at the senior center for free, and I have a video of it somewhere, and it's hilarious. I can't watch it anymore, but it's adorable. And I had a lot of support throughout the whole career. And then I realized later on that first magician that I saw had the same teacher that I do now. And that's how I heard about Jeff McBride.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's kind of a great story on how I got started like that. And it all kind of came full circle now.
Nice. You mentioned Jeff McBride. I understand that you went to his school.
I did. So I've been studying with Jeff McBride for about 10 years now. And I went to my first master class when I was 12 years old. And then he's taken me on as one of his private students. And recently I've been acting as a part-time instructor at the magic school for helping teach some of the manipulation and skill magic classes.
Nice. That's what I was about to ask next. What magic do you specialize in? Is there stuff that you lean towards, or is there?
Yeah, my favorite style of magic to perform is sleight of hand. And sleight of hand performed on stage using cards and billiard balls and rings as well, and things that take a lot of skill and a lot of practice, because it's something that I've put a lot of work into growing up and something that really got me into magic. I saw Jeff perform his card act and was super inspired by that I decided to get his teaching videos and learn it for myself. So it was really important and kind of a really inspiring trip to be able to perform that now as part of my show. But as I've evolved as an entertainer, I've kind of realized the importance of being able to use the skill sleight of hand to share a story that the audience cares about. Because you can be up there, especially on the Zoom format, doing virtual shows. You can be here showing off all the skill that you want, but it's being able to make that personable connection with somebody that makes your show and your experience so entertaining for somebody else.
Nice. Now, you mentioned storytelling or all that stuff. Are there certain elements that you like to add into your show, like comedy, drama, suspense, just things to make it more of a performance, like you mentioned?
Yeah, so I have a full evening theater show that I will perform for colleges and fundraisers, and we usually put together a summer tour to do that. And in a show that long, you need to script it just like a movie would be scripted. You start really high, and then you drop down to a personable moment, and you have these kind of this whole storytelling arc, creating highs and lows to make it an interesting and dynamic experience for the audience. So spending a few minutes on an upbeat piece of music, then maybe sitting down and telling a small story, then going to a massive stage illusion. So it's so important to be able to create this dynamic range in your show to be able to tell a story, to maintain an audience's attention for 75 minutes in this technology-driven day and age where you can look up anything on your phone. It's so important to be able to keep their engagement in the show and create these highs and lows, but also be able to use your show as kind of a storytelling method and use the templates that have already been created and then proven through years, like hundreds of years of cinema, to create a dynamic performance that will honestly be over before it started and where people leave the theater wanting more.
Mm-hmm. Now I got to ask, I asked this to a lot of magicians that go on the show. Do you remember any specific performance that stood out to you because of how funny it went or something like that, like a crowd reaction? Or
I was in Las Vegas. Yes, I do. The very first time I saw Mac King perform at Harrah's Casino in the afternoon show in Las Vegas. And every time I go back to see his show, same show for probably 30 years, but there's always something that I didn't catch the first time. And for those who don't know Mac King's show, he's eating guinea pigs. He's putting rocks in his shoe. He has this whole show that it starts out as a bunch of random nonsense, and then toward the end, it's all cleverly scripted callbacks, and it's a genius performance that he puts together. And it was a hilarious moment where he brings this woman on stage and has her sign a card, and he doesn't specify what side of the card she was supposed to have signed. So he's looking through and she signed the wrong card. He's like, wow, let me see if I can find your card. She had signed the back side. So it was a funny moment that he made into gold for that audience.
Mm-hmm.
And later I realized, after speaking with Mac, that he builds that into his show as a comedic moment. It happened to him one night, and he was able to kind of manipulate it to make it happen every time and then react just the same. And every night in his show, something different may happen. And then being able to build something funny off of that to make it like, okay, how can I make that happen every time? Because that was such an amazing moment.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever done something like that? Have you ever had like one of those moments where like something may have not gone your way, but then you quickly turn it around to make it go your way? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and I can think of a couple examples for sure, but I always believe that there's a point of no return where, as a magician or as an entertainer, it becomes more important to the audience's experience for you to be human rather than superhuman. And what I mean by that is if you make a mistake on stage or a trick doesn't go right and it just goes completely wrong and it's obvious that you go wrong, there's a point of no return where it's like, wow, that didn't work. And you admit defeat almost. Mm-hmm. And I believe as an entertainer, it makes you more personable, because now the audience is sharing in a truly unique experience that they know that they were just a part of. And I can think of a specific example where, without giving too much away, there is an effect in my show where a volunteer selects a card, and I'm going to read the mind of that person, and I draw their card on a sketch pad, and I get the card wrong, and it's a joke. And then I make their card rise out of the drawing, and the drawing comes to life, and their card is supposed to rise out of the card as a save, and I get the card right. Except one night I didn't get it right the second time. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no way I can get out of this situation. So I tore the page off. I gave it to the person as a gift. And at that point, I admitted defeat. I said, this is something that's never happened before, and this is a unique experience that you'll get to keep this and remember that moment. And now, folks, we're going to transition to another part of the show that I can't mess up.
That's beautiful. I like how you're not one of those who like kind of like, that didn't go well, that didn't go, what do I do now? What do I do? You just go, hey, I messed up. I made a mistake. There you go. Won't happen again, Right.
And it's being able to create that humanism with the audience, and now that person will remember that show even more. Because I wasn't there trying to be, trying to save my butt, but I made them look like the hero in a way that, they may have called me out indirectly. Like, yeah, I messed up. Mm-hmm. Everyone messes up.
Yeah.
It's part of being human.
Exactly. You weren't one of those like snarky magicians who's like, I never make mistakes. That was planned,
Right. It's like, no, everything can go wrong. And I've had it go wrong. Mm-hmm. And my attitude toward it now, like, as a kid, when starting out magic and doing the technical side of hand stuff, you're always like really nervous, like, oh, am I going to mess up? And then you mess up on stage and it's the end of the world, right? Mm-hmm. My attitude toward it now is like, if I mess up on stage, all right, I know how to get out of it. How entertained am I going to be on stage? Because it gets to the point where I can do my acts without thinking about it, the manipulation sleight of hand. And if I can do an act without thinking about it, if something happens that's not supposed to happen, oh, now I have to think about it. And I have to think on my feet and how to recover. I was in the finals for the International Brotherhood of Magicians stage competition, representing the United States and I was against a woman from Japan. And she ended up winning the competition. I got second place. She had an amazing act, but part of the problem I had was in the finals of the competition. The second time I did my act, I dropped a ball. I made a mistake and it shot off stage. And I knew how to recover from that. But of course, the magician judges know what to look for. Mm-hmm. So I recovered from it. I made an extra ball appear and finished my routine. But, your heart rate spikes about that much. Your heart rate goes way up as soon as something like that happens, because now you have to think on your feet and create something that you haven't practiced, but you've also practiced over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about that competition you just mentioned.
Yeah. So in 2019, I was selected to help represent the entire United States on stage at the IBM convention, which stands for the International Brotherhood of Magicians. It was hosted in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they had magicians from all over the world competing. And what they do, you have to submit a video to be selected to perform in the prelims, and they select about 20 people to perform in the prelims of the competition. People from all over the world. We had Germany, we had France, we had China, we had Japan, and after the first day of performance, the judges send you a scorecard. They score you based on performance excellence, music selection, technical ability, and you get a numeric score based on your total points. And the 6 competitors with the highest points move on to the finals, where now you have to do your act again, just like you did in the prelims, and then get judged again by a different panel of judges who will then award the awards for that year. And they do a first and second place award for each category, and they have close-up stage adult and then close-up in stage for youth, people under 16, I believe. And so in that year, 2019, I took second place in the world for IBM, and we didn't have a convention this year, so I guess I still have it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I don't know.
Hey, speaking of COVID, I didn't mention this when I say those questions, but how do you think COVID has impacted like performing, and what do you see going from here on out?
Yeah, that's a hard question. It was really hard at the beginning because, like every entertainer, you have 12, 13, 14 months of work, just 24 hours cancel on you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what do you do from there? You have to be able to adapt. And I was really reluctant to move to the virtual format because my attitude was always, it's going to be virtual. It's not going to be as good as my live show. But then I saw another magician perform a virtual show, and I was actually inspired because it was a show that I forgot was virtual, which was interesting because of his interaction and the way he built his show around that. So instead of thinking of like, oh, my show isn't going to be that good, my attitude has shifted to, all right, this is what it might be for a while. How good can I make it? How amazing of an experience can I make it? How much of myself can I put forth toward the camera? How much of my A material that I perform on stage can I convert to the virtual format so that I can give people the best show possible? But when it all started, when everything crashed in March, I kind of crashed with it. I didn't quit magic, but I just stopped performing. I didn't do anything. I stopped practicing. I stopped working. I didn't really know what direction to go. I was still talking to all my magic friends, and Sean Farquhar out of Canada shared a story with me because I spoke to him. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm losing direction. And he is the most optimistic person I know. And I'll share the story because it's out there. In the 80s, he had his apartment burned down and he lost almost everything. All his illusions, all his magic stuff. And this was before he was a big name. So that was a lot. He didn't have much to begin with. And he was sitting there. His hands had 3rd-degree burns, all wrapped in mittens and, being cared for. He's in oxygen. And the newscast comes up to him and they say, Sean, you just lost everything in your life. How do you feel? He looks at the camera and he says, well, I think it's going to be the easiest move I've ever had. And it got me thinking, like, Sean had just lost everything. And his attitude was, now I have less stuff in my life. I have less stuff to move. This is great. He had a way of seeing the best out of any situation. And I think that's a great way to look at it. And that's kind of a story that got me through the first few months of COVID. And, I'm in a much better mindset at this point that I can, freely say, but that was really an inspiring moment, kind of an eye-opening moment at that point.
Most definitely. I love your attitude on it. I love how you've adapted, like most people, they're reluctant to do stuff because they're afraid of this, or it's not the same. But
right,
when you looked at it and went, hey, I like this. I can do this. I can incorporate this. I can go off what this person's doing and build into that. That's what more people need today. Like, I know comedians who, I'm a practicing comedian myself, and I know ones who like just don't want to do virtual shows because they can get recorded, and then it's like, what are you performing for? Because then like someone can show it to the comedy club, and they don't. Why do they need to pay the real guy or something like that? But there are some that actually do it. Me and our buddy Chris, as we were talking before the show, do a comedy and magic show every once in a while, and I love it. It gets me. It's that thing that I can do outside of work and everything. So I love the attitude.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. And it's taken a while to change the mindset. And I've had a lot of people along the way help.
Mhm.
But as an artist, and you understand this as well, it's so important to keep your chops and keep performing. And I was reluctant too, because someone could record my material and put it up. And then I kind of realized, like, my material is already on YouTube. I've uploaded a lot of my material. People, and that's like saying, like, if you're going to go to a concert, or if you're going to listen to music on Spotify, or if you're going to listen to anyone's music, why see them in person?
Yeah, exactly.
Comedy, as you know, comedy is contagious. That's why comedy clubs pack each other in, because when the person next to you is laughing, you're going to laugh too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different experience being in a live theater. Yeah, you can watch someone on TV, but you're probably going to breathe a little bit harder in your living room watching it by yourself. But when you're in a theater watching a show, your abs are going to be looking so good the next morning because you laughed so hard that night.
Yep.
And you understand that as a comedian, I'm sure, because I know you have a lot of content out. You're putting content out all the time with this podcast, and you're constantly creating content. And especially in this technology-driven day and age, content is king. So especially for those entertainers who are reluctant to get out there, this is the perfect time to create new content and try things out on the camera. Everyone is stuck at home on Zoom right now. This is a perfect time to reach an audience that you never had an opportunity to reach. I grew up in Washington. I'm in California now. And for the first time in like 4 years, I can do shows for people at home who used to watch my show as a kid. And that's great. And people who wouldn't otherwise, because of the current situation, be able to leave their homes. So I think by putting out content digitally, it makes people want to see you live in person that much more.
Yes. And even nowadays, you put out more content, like you mentioned, people are going to remember those good times. People are going to look back and go, I remember seeing him at this comedy club, or I remember seeing you perform somewhere. I can't wait till things open up again so I can go back and see them again.
Definitely.
So, but let me let me ask you this. Who are some of your magician role models, people that you really looked up to, or grew up and you love to watch, you love to, any chance you got,
So the first magician I ever saw at the library, his name was Sterling Dietz, and he was the world teen champion of magic back in, I think, 2008 is when he won that competition, 2006 or 2008. And he was the first magician I ever saw. So you're always super inspired by that person. And later, when I got a little bit older, when I was about 12 years old, I reached out to him, and he helped kind of give me some direction when I was starting putting together my first shows, as when I was thinking this was something I wanted to pursue. And around the same time, I realized he had the same teacher that I wanted to study under. And he was a student of Jeff McBride, and he was actually a prodigy student of Jeff McBride, who his story was he started magic when he was like 14 years old, and 18 months later he won the world championship because of Jeff McBride's tutelage and Sterling's dedication to learning magic. And so I wanted to study under this Jeff McBride person. So I got in touch with Jeff and attended one of his master classes. And then he took me under as one of his private students. So I talked to Jeff, probably once a week, if not that. And then most recently, David Davinci is another phenomenal entertainer. He's a cruise ship entertainer, and then he does fundraiser shows. And then he and his wife also run a parrot training company known as Bird Tricks, and they're the leading experts right now for bird training. That's Dave and Jamie Womack, and they are on YouTube as Bird Tricks. But Dave has such a great outlook on life. He is really someone who helped kind of, either if I was down in the dumps or whatever, he's like, hey, no, get together. You're going running right now. This is something you're doing. We are going to get you back on track. And he's always been there. And then we have a group chat. We talk every single day. Dave, Michael Tricks, Bill Cook, and another guy, his name is Oscar. And we participate in this lifestyle program created by entrepreneur Andy Frisella called 75 Hard, which I can get into a little bit later if you want to, but it's a mental toughness lifestyle program that we've been working on for the past 2 years. And it's something that kind of creates this, both an entrepreneurship mindset and also a lifestyle mindset that helps elevate you and create this sense of ruggedness in your life. So these are my support system, and these people who I look up to every single day, and these people who can always pull me up if I need that, or put me in my place if I need that too.
Mm-hmm. You kind of answered my next question there about like who have you performed with, like notable people you performed with.
Mm-hmm.
Are there others that you like can hang your head up saying I've been on stage with this person?
Yeah. So as part of the IBM convention in 2019, I was on stage with Lance Burton, who is now retired. He retired in 2010, but he was kind of the David Copperfield of Vegas before David Copperfield. And he had his own theater in the Monte Carlo, performed over 15,000 shows on the Las Vegas Strip, and had an amazing history. And he's still a legend. He still lives in Las Vegas, and he's a good friend. And then working at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, every time I would perform there, I had the opportunity to meet all these legends that I look up to. Fielding West is another person. Sean Farquhar is a good friend of mine who lives in Canada, who I mentioned earlier. And Larry Wilson, and all these people who I've grown up watching as a kid, and I can finally work with them on stage at the Magic Castle. Joseph Gabriel, Mark Bennick, the list kind of goes on. And Jody Barron is another person who I've worked with. And these people who I may have had brief interactions with, and they don't know it, but even though their interaction was brief, they made such an impression. And then every time I go to the castle, I love speaking with Jack Goldfinger. He's the entertainment producer and director at the Magic Castle. And he speaks what we call Jackanese. He has this amazing outlook on life and always these funny phrases on how to make just your day a little bit better.
Nice. You always need people like that in life, you know?
100%.
Yep. So what about some notable places that you've performed at?
Mm-hmm. So I've performed all over the United States, and I'm waiting to see, but obviously we can't right now. But the Magic Castle in Hollywood, I headlined the Wonderground nightclub in Las Vegas last summer, right before I represented at the International Brotherhood of Magicians in Scottsdale, Arizona. St. Louis, I've also performed some fundraisers and some corporate shows in Wyoming, and then I've kind of owned the Pacific Coast going up and down. And also, I've kind of owned the market in my town of San Luis Obispo, as I'm a college student as well. So I attend college, and then I was building my market in San Luis Obispo, performing as much as I can every weekend. And then international competitions and conventions up in Canada, where I have a lot of friends who reside there, and then Seattle area. And so companies like Starbucks and Boeing I've worked for, producing fundraisers, and also being able to give back through programs like that, for example, the Relay for Life. So
nice. You're mentioning a lot of charities here. One thing I always ask my buddies who come on this show is, if you could have our audience donate to one charity of your choice, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so I have a couple that I love to work for. The first person that I go to would be the Seattle Children's Hospital. 2 years ago, we produced a fundraiser show. I was producing fundraiser programs where basically if they promote the show and they get the show going, we use corporate sponsors to cover all the expenses, and they keep 100% of the ticket sales. And I think in one night in my hometown, we sold out both shows and made like $6,000 for the Seattle Children's Hospital, which is an amazing donation for them. And then down here, we have the Miracle Children's Hospital Network, which I've worked for through Cal Poly, my university. And they put on the Cal Poly Dance Marathon, where I've performed as well. And they do fundraisers for the Children's Hospital Network down here.
Beautiful. I love those answers. Mm-hmm. So what about, I always ask this other, let me ask you this first question. I almost forgot about this. What about that show that you mentioned, the 75 Hard?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So 75 Hard was created. It's not a challenge. It's not like a fad challenge or a fad diet system or anything like that. It was created by an entrepreneur named Andy Frisella, who, if you look him up, he is one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. He owns 7 companies and successfully runs 7 companies, multimillionaire. And he created this program because people were asking him, what does it take to be successful? What does it take to be happy? Because people look at him and he's like the image of happiness and for what they see on the outside. And he created this program called 75 Hard, which you do over 75 consecutive days. And there's 5 things you need to do every day to complete your daily tasks for 75 Hard. It's 2 45-minute workouts, one of which has to be outside. Doesn't matter what the weather is or what the conditions are, has to be outside. You have to follow a nutrition plan, whatever that is for you. Follow a nutrition plan. You have to drink a gallon of water every day. You have to take a progress picture every day, and you have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction, entrepreneurship-based or life-based book. And this is something you have all day to complete. And the whole point of 75 Hard is to build resilience and fortitude and grit within your lifestyle in order to apply that to every other part of your life. Because if you want to create, his whole point is if you want to create happiness, you have to be the one to do that for yourself. Nobody owes you anything. So the person who has to be able to create happiness for you is yourself, and you have to be accountable for that. And I learned that the hard way when COVID happened. And this is where Dave and Michael and Bill and Oscar were there to pick me up. And we have a group chat called the Sorcerer Syndicate because we're all magicians except for Oscar. He's a guy that Dave met on Instagram who was following 75 Hard too as well. And he has an amazing story. Go follow Instagram. Ain't no stopping Oscar, I believe is his handle. But he has an amazing story anyway. We started 75 Hard as a way to build happiness within our lives and teach ourselves how to create ourselves and make happiness for ourselves. Mainly because when COVID first hit, it seemed like everything was falling apart at once. You know, I had all my shows canceled. College went all online. My parents were kind of, isolating themselves in Northern California. I was in Southern California. I went through a gnarly breakup. And I was just in a really weird mental space. And it was really those guys who got me back on track and got me where I needed to be to realize that I'm the one who's accountable for my own happiness. Because when things that made me happy because of other people started randomly just kind of taking themselves off my daily list, I wasn't left with a lot. And I found myself in a really weird headspace. So at this point, I've been able to create that mental fortitude with the help of these friends to basically build up my attitude so that I'm the one who's in control of what makes me happy. It shouldn't be anyone else's responsibility.
Beautiful. I love that answer. That's the answer that people need today,
Totally.
Just that your happiness isn't dependent on, your significant other or your, the status of, a hobby that you like to do that's now canceled,
Right.
It's you finding those things. I've taken walks during COVID, around my neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Just
all the time. Walks are great.
Yeah. To just clear my head and just think to myself, listen to music, enjoy the scenery, get some fresh air rather than stay cooped up all day going, what am I going to do? 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 So, and that's how Buddycast was created,
Right.
I just wanted something this is my project. This is something that I do to, I got the time now. I've got the captive audience because half the people that I've interviewed are stuck home, performers are stuck here. Performers are, they're not, well, I can schedule in for the 15th of March of next year because that's the next free time I'll see. They're like,
right.
Nothing going on, which, when can we jump on? So, in a good way, they're all starting to pick up again,
It's definitely because, and magic connects to this so well because I think if magic reminds us of anything, it's that all things are subject to change.
Mm-hmm.
And, magic is a great reminder of that. And people constantly need that reminder. And it hit hard for everyone back in March. And, we're still kind of trying to adapt and kind of ease our way back into what we think is normal. But even when things go back to what they were in March, if they do, whenever that may be, I don't think the virtual format for shows is going to go away at all. Mm-hmm. Because from this, a lot of companies are realizing that, maybe we don't need office space and people are realizing, we don't need to fly in an entertainer. We can just have them commute over the camera. And the beautiful thing for entertainers now is when everything opens up, if I have a corporation or a company that wants to book me in Idaho and I have another show that same day in California, I can do one or the other virtually. and still be able to please each audience. In essence, be in two places at once.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when you think about it, I am so glad that, I mean, no one can really be glad about the shutdown, but if you think about it this way, I'm so glad that it happened in 2020 when we have the technology that's good enough to stream in such high quality, and where the internet can be high quality enough where we are that we're not constantly cutting in and out. If this happened back in 2004, it'd be a completely different story. You know, everyone would have skipped a year of school and would just take a year longer to graduate.
You and me would have been communicating not through Facebook, but through that AOL Messenger. Remember that?
Yeah. We'd be sending telegrams, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Mailer pigeons.
Yep. Let me ask you this now.
Mm-hmm.
In your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
Being someone's buddy is being there for them whenever they need it, no matter what they've done, no matter who they are, but because they're your friend. And because they are willing to put themselves on the same level as you in order to bring that person up. You know, if without the buddies in my life back in March, April, May, June, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be in the headspace that I am in today. You know, I have this group of people that I mentioned that we talk every single day. We keep each other accountable. It's not always nice. We always make fun of each other. We always rip on each other, but that's what a good friendship is too. Mm-hmm. We are there to keep each other accountable and keep each other on track in the short term, so that in the long term, we can achieve incredible success.
I love it. Now I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to go on to your performance.
Yeah.
This is what I call the ultimate Buddycast buddy question. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
What is your advice for anyone out there who wants to be a magician?
Ooh, I would say reach out. Reach out to anybody. The thing with the magic community is everyone is very accessible. I mentioned Lance Burton. I could call Lance Burton right now and he'd answer. I could call Jeff McBride right now and he'd answer. I can't call David Copperfield, but I know who to call to get a hold of David Copperfield. Everyone is very accessible in the magic community, and most of the times they're more than willing to help. And if you have questions, I was on for 3 hours today with another member of the Magic Castle who's, I think he's 16, or no, he's a senior in high school. So he's like 17 or 18. And I just met him today and he sent me a video and he's like, hey, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, I have time today. I was on with him on Zoom for 3 hours, helping put his act together and help him polish his act, because it's what I love doing. You know, I love talking about magic. If anyone wants to hit me up and talk about magic, anyone who reaches out, they want to be a magician, I'll help you in any way that I can.
I love that. It's all about mentoring, and it's all about being, like you said, being that buddy, being that, hey, you want to learn magic? I'm in, let me help you. Rather than, well, if I teach you, then one day you're going to overpower me and I'm going to lose everything, because they're going to see, like, you're not one of those people.
No, so. I've learned, my attitude with it is, if I'm losing work to another entertainer, that means I'm not working hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll hear, there's two kinds of magicians and there's more of one kind, but those who, I'm an open book with, I'll tell people anything they need to know about the business side, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have people helping me. I learned from people who have been in my shoes and have been where I am. And that's why, like, I always want to surround myself with people who are where I want to be. That's why I hang out with Dave Davinci and Bill Cook and Michael Trix and Oscar, because they inspire me in such a way that I want to be just like Dave is when I'm older, because he has the lifestyle that I so desire. And he has the freedom to do whatever he wants. He's getting me into skydiving because it's a way to be free, and it's a way to let go of everything. And it's great. So I think that's the best way.
Mm-hmm. How's that going, by the way?
It's great.
Skydiving.
It's great. I'm taking a break since I'm back in California now, and things are still kind of weird. But over the summer, I got some good jumps in, started the training for solo skydiving. So I'm continuing that. And then Dave is a wingsuit pilot. So he's been kicking it, and he won't let me end the conversation with him without trying to schedule another jump. So it's something I love doing, and I can't wait to do more.
That's awesome. Alrighty. You know what? I think we got to close the show on a high note. I think we need a performance from you.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm so ready. For this performance, I would like to tell a story, actually. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about where I grew up. See, I grew up in a small island community off the coast of Seattle. Few may know it, but I grew up in Anacortes, Washington. For those who don't know Anacortes, it's a town of about 16,000 people. The average age is about 70, and the main export of the town is rope. But it's home, and it'll always be home. Doesn't sound like much. And what's cool about living on the island, Nick, is that I learned how to operate a vehicle at just 10 years old. 10 years old. Tell you what, I'm going to show you the vehicle I first learned how to drive. Here we go. That's weird. Let me explain, Nick. See, like Ford or Chevy is for your car, Hunter is a model of a sailboat, and Elliott is a bay in the Puget Sound. My name is Elliott Hunter because in 1998, my father purchased his Hunter sailboat in Elliott Bay, and he had a kid. I'm named after a sailboat, and I wouldn't change that for the world.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, making this sailboat appear out of thin air and be the story behind it. That's perfect. That's perfect. I love it. My parents also own a boat, so I can relate, you know?
Yeah? It's like a big hole in the water where you just chuck money.
Yep, pretty much. My dad will tell you that for sure, you know?
Yeah. Every week. Let's go clean the boat. Again?
Yeah.
Oh, I love sailing. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, yeah. You ever go fishing? Do anything like that?
A little bit. I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah. It's one of those things, skydiving, where you just let everything go, you know? Exactly.
It's great when you catch a fish, though.
Oh, absolutely. Best feeling in the world.
Dinner tonight. Sweet.
Exactly.
Although crabbing's fun. Crabbing's fun because you just put the thing away, go boating for an hour, come back and pick it up. Yes.
And my uncle said it best. A bad day of fishing is better than a good day at the office, you know?
100%.
Yep.
You know, that's a great way to look at that too.
Yep, most definitely. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for being a buddy here on Buddycast.
Thanks for having me.
It was truly amazing. We'll have to have you on one of our virtual shows that me and Chris do.
Love to. And like you said, any friend of Chris is a friend of mine. So you and me are buddies now.
Yes, most definitely. Chris is my magic consultant on this thing. So anyone that reaches out to me, hey, do you know this guy by chance? Yep, he's a good head. Don't worry about him. He's be perfect Buddycast. Thank you.
Chris is a great guy. You got a great consultant on your hands. Keep him.
Yes, most definitely. And he's a great pal too. Just a great friend in general. Just someone who's always nice and caring, always, checking in on you, making sure everything's going well. And he's
and it's great with him. I can pick up where we can not speak for a couple months, and we just pick up where we left off. And
exactly.
And those are great kind of people to have in your life because hey, we get busy throughout the day. So people like Chris are good people.
Yes, most definitely. Alrighty, man. Well, thanks again for being a buddy here on Buddycast. For all my buddies out there, this is my new buddy Elliott Hunter. Thank you again.
This is my buddy Nick Sorensen.
Yep. And as I always end all of my shows, just do me one favor tonight. Go be someone's buddy. We'll catch you next time here on Buddycast.
Thanks so much, everyone.